after work again. It's bloody freezing. About 6 degrees, I think. So I'm going to go in soon. But last night and tonight I've done a little bit. So last night I cleaned up the throttle and the headlight switchgear on this side, and tonight I machined up a little bush to go in the brake lever, little brass bush, and that's taken all the slop out of that. So I just use a piece of 3/8 brass rod, drill it out to be a suitable size for the little pivot point, and then I use some Loctite bearing fit to fit that in. And I'm just doing the same on the other side, the clutch side, which is a bit fiddlier because there is the indicator switch, the whatever that switch is, the high-low beam switch, and the horn are all on the clutch side, and clutch lever was also wobbly. So I did the same thing. I drilled out the lever, and then what I discovered is on this clutch lever there was actually a little steel insert in there already. So I drilled it out and I was reaming out the hole, and that came out. So the hole was already bushed. I think maybe this is an original handle and the brake side might be a replacement, even though it was still worn. I'm not quite sure. But because that bush dropped out, the hole was a bit too big. So what I've had to do on this side is use some of the 660 retaining compound, which can fill in gaps basically. And I've got the little brass bush in there. I'm going to leave that overnight. It's just sitting here. This is just to hold it flat on the bottom with a bit of weight. I'll let that set overnight and that should be fine. Some other things arrived today. Some electrical tape, because I'm going to re-wrap the loom where needed. This is good quality Nitto tape. I really wanted the thicker variety, which is a 21A tape, I believe. And again, it seems to be one of these things that it's not easy to get in New Zealand. I couldn't find anywhere online I could order the 21A. This is 203E. I believe the only difference is this is slightly thinner, not quite as thick tape, but it should be fine. It's worth getting decent quality electrical tape. The other thing that arrived were some replacement front brake pads, and I think these are no longer made. I'm not quite sure. So when I saw them, I grabbed them, but when I put everything back together, I'll check the wear on the existing ones, and if they're fine, I'm not going to change them. I'll just keep those as spares. My new bearings arrived as well. So those are fully sealed, double shielded bearings, and I put the little cush drive bush things in the freezer overnight, so they got really cold, and I set the rims up in front of my diesel heater and warmed them up, and I was able to get those to push in pretty easily using a socket the right size on the outside. May need to go in a little bit further, but I can just push those home now that they're in straight. And I pushed in the bearings, which are in there now, brand new sealed bearings and new oil seals. I've reused that dust shield seal on the front one there. That should be fine to reuse, I think. And what else am I doing? I'm just about to reassemble this, and this one's really fiddly. So that's the indicator switch. I'm guessing everybody's come across things with springs and ball bearings. This has got a spring and ball bearing on this side of that little plastic sliding piece, and on the other side it's got a spring and a metal contact, which is what's rubbing on the switch contacts. So to get that in place, you have to compress 2 springs on either side and drop it in there without everything going flying. It did go flying once. The ball bearing basically bounced off me and back onto the table, luckily. So that was the only mishap. This has all just been cleaned, and then I'm using my electrical clean and lube to lubricate it. I'm just about to put together the rest of it. if I can remember how it goes. I did take photos, but there's all sorts of little shields and little screws and springs and bits and pieces, but it's relatively straightforward. So I'm going to do that now. Have the clutch side all back together. It seems to work. I've buzzed everything out with my multimeter and it definitely all works, which is good. I just got that back together and then I found a spring. The spring was in there and it's a very tiny spring. It's about 2.5 millimeters, maybe 3 millimeters diameter, about the same long. And I knew exactly where it had come from, because when I'd reassembled this one, I thought the switch here was a bit loose. And yes, the spring goes in the little plastic slider in there and goes up against the little indents to give it a bit more positive action. And I found the spring. I have no idea where the ball bearing went. I've had a look on the floor and trying to find a sort of 2.5 millimeter diameter ball bearing on the floor here wasn't really going to be easy. So I had to look through my box of bits and I found these, and it's like that story of the entitled blonde girl who breaks into bears' houses, where this one was just a little bit too small and this one was just a little bit too big. So I ended up machining up a little brass button, basically, that was about the right size, with a curved end and a little tail that fitted into the spring, and I put that in there, and that now has that proper detent action. So it sits where it needs to sit and won't come out. So these are now finished, apart from the clutch handle, which I will do once the Loctite's dry tomorrow. This looks a little bit crushed down, but I don't want to try bending that too much, because that's liable to break. I need to find a nice 10mm dome nut. That seems to be what's on the bottom there. This one just had a plain 10mm nut. I should see if I've got any. This is my random box of bits. You can see this is where all the little ball bearings are. I've got some of these acorn nuts, but it doesn't look like I've got any the right size. No, they're too small. So we'll put these back in there. So the controls are now all nicely done. I'm still waiting on the clutch plates. So I ordered those 11 or 12 days ago. So I sent the seller a message saying, is there a tracking number for these? Because nothing's arrived yet. And the very next day there was a tracking number saying it had just been picked up. So obviously the guy hadn't sent them yet. So hopefully they won't be too far away. But controls are done. For putting the tyres on, I really need to wait until a nice sunny day, get some heat into the tyres just to make them a bit softer. But I think I can do it with the normal tyre irons. You can get rim protectors. So I might kind of make my own from some just flat strips of plastic cut from a thick bottle. And the other thing I've seen someone do is you just wrap leather around the edge of the tyre iron, and that's enough to protect the rims. So I'm going to give that a try. But I think that's all for tonight, because it's cold and my dinner is ready inside apparently.